So before the inauguration process happened, ladies and gentlemen, you just saw it on the live stream here, but we want to show you what happened over the weekend because there was a bit of kerfuffle with a lot of protests against Trump. And it just seems like a reincarnation of the women's marches, the Pussy Hat riots of 2016, reassuring again in 2025. And just like the last time, it is a protest without a cause. And it just kind of seems a waste of time, a waste of opportunity, because if they actually want to retaliate on Trump on something, they would actually impose a policy to try to bring leverage to that issue so they can actually protest something meaningful. But that doesn't seem to be the case. So, right now, um, here is a video here from this is from after the election of Donald Trump back in November. This was in Chicago where people massively protested outside of Trump Towers. And it just seems like, again, an empty, voidless, a complete disaster of people chanting at whim without any sort of real meaning to it. And it just seems so vague. Listen to this.
In Trump presidential term.
Racist, sexist, anti-gay. Donald Trump, go away. Racist, sexist, anti-gay. Donald Trump, go away.
So it's just meaningless buzzwords. There's no actual meaning to these protests. Oh, racist, sexist, anti-gay, racist, sexist, anti-gay. Donald Trump, go away. There's no backing, there's no argument to it. This is just buzzwords you just heard on CNN numerous times over and over and over again that you're just going to chant in the streets to hopefully convince people. It's like it's basically a cult following trying to go around and scoop as many people as possible without any sort of acknowledgement to anything. And like I said, if you actually want to protest Donald Trump on something, you would look to a specific policy of his where you actually have some leverage. And you actually have an argument to go against Trump on something. But just like 2016, it's just complete BS, just status quo, mealy mouth insanity that just furthers the divide. Furthers and furthers the divide. So there's more of this. So the guy's screaming, "Donald Trump, you fascist clown." I don't know if you know this. But I do recall, I think it was just last year or a couple of years ago, where Joe Biden declared half the country a bunch of domestic terrorists, where he institutes a institution in government that he was going to monitor and track down people that were spreading misinformation, that he was going to get Homeland Security and policing to attack people spreading wrong think on social media. Who do you think's more of a fascist clown? Someone who's a game show host that became president and is willing to actually challenge a bit of the status quo, or someone like Joe Biden who will go on stage and talk about decency like a maniac, smile and grin like a maniac about decency, and then discriminates half the country, attacks half the country? Who's more of a fascist clown? How many censorship bills has Donald Trump put in place compared to Joe Biden, Kamala Harris? Just saying. So there they are protesting in front of Trump's hotel in Chicago, where Trump is nowhere to be found there. So you're basically screaming to the wind. You're screaming to the wind. That's why these are so stupid. That's why I just don't have any respect, any sort of tolerance for something like this. Because at least with an actual protest, people coordinate, they gather, they actually have a standable argument to go against politicians. Like, for example, the Free Palestine people in Chicago, when they were protesting the Democrats, they were pressuring Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to come to a ceasefire deal that Donald Trump is doing right now. So again, explain to me how he's the fascist pig. Explain to me how he's such a racist tyrant when Donald Trump is trying to organize a ceasefire deal with Netanyahu to prevent the further slaughtering of Palestinians and Arabs within the Middle East, and also coordinated efforts during his campaign to bring black and brown people to his rallies in extortionate amounts. You wonder why Donald Trump lost a lot of the swing states. You wonder why even places like New York and California, which are predominant blue states, a lot of it went to red. A lot of it went to red. The only significant that kept it a blue state was places like LA and San Francisco and New York City. And who are predominantly in those areas? The billionaire class. People that watch The View and think they're getting actual good information. People that think MSNBC is accurate. Those people. The people that are protesting right now. So that was after the election in Chicago. Now, fast forward to this past weekend in New York City.
Trump presidential term is stoking fears in many. This brought various activists to Lower Manhattan today to make sure their voices will still be heard. Our Jessica Formoso has their story.
No justice! I said no justice!
Hundreds chanted and marched through the streets of Lower Manhattan, opposing the policies and rhetoric of the incoming Trump administration.
The sign says what I have to say. I can't believe that we have to do this again, and I fear that this time will be worse.
It's a march that's
amazing that she had to say that. I can't believe I have to do this again. No, I can't believe you are doing it again. I can't believe you're thinking that this is going to help the American population. Like, I can't believe I have to go out and hold a sign and chant buzzwords that I keep periodically hearing on corporate media while claiming that you're helping Americans against the oligarchy. You're protesting for the oligarchy. You're protesting in support of the oligarchy. People like Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and the rest of the establishment who have used the exact same wording and language to ferociously go after Trump. And not because Trump is any different than the rest of the oligarchy. He was a construct of the oligarchy. But the only reason they hate him so much is because he's not 100% in that bubble. He kind of goes a little outside the lines when he goes onto TV and talks about how we're in Syria to guard the oil. Oh, no, Donald. You can't say that. That's not good context. That's not how the status quo operates. You have to lie to people and talk about humanitarian causes. You have to talk about we're bringing democracy to these people. That's the reason they hate Trump. That's the reason they hate Trump so much. It's because he is not 100% controllable by the oligarchy. That sometimes he goes a little outside the line. He colors a little bit outside the dots. And that infuriates people within the establishment who are part of this political globalist agenda that now with Donald Trump regaining fame in 2025, oh crap, now we're going to be behind schedule. Now 2030 is going to have to be 2045 now. That's why. That's why. And all these people are just getting their buzzwords from MSNBC and CNN. Now they're going onto the streets just repeating that same garbage, thinking that they're doing due diligence for the American public. Even though the American public enormously voted for Donald Trump. He won the popular vote way more than he did in 2016.
Started in 2017. It was then called the Women's March, a worldwide protest the day after President Donald Trump's first inauguration. 8 years later, it has been rebranded as the People's March, a movement demonstrators believe means more now than ever.
Things like this are what we need to do, and standing together is what this country was founded on. So standing together is the best way to fight for what is right.
Rallying for women's reproductive rights.
We're pushing for the Equal Rights Amendment. I'm very concerned about the Supreme Court. If they can roll back 50 years of precedent protecting a woman's right to choose, then they can roll back any right. And that's why it's so important to get the Equal Rights Amendment and the protections for women in the Constitution where they belong.
So why wouldn't you be fighting the Democratic Party that had every opportunity to codify Roe v. Wade? Why would you be critiquing your party that was supposed to mandate this, that keeps running on abortion rights every single election cycle? It's almost like purposely they didn't want to codify Roe v. Wade so that at some point the Supreme Court was going to overturn it, and then they could keep using it as a political issue to run on. I mean, look at the DNC last year. It was nothing but 5 straight nights of pro-abortion. Can't even say pro-choice anymore because of what we saw with COVID. People don't have choice to their bodies anymore. I would say that I'm for pro-choice, meaning that I have no right to dignify and go after people, what they do to their bodies, what they inject. I have no right or say. I can have my convictions and say certain things, but that comes down to the doctor and the patient. That all went away during COVID. So now all of a sudden, being pro-choice doesn't exist anymore. Now it's pro-abortion, which nobody is pro-abortion. Even just saying it is absurd. Nobody is pro-abortion. That's like saying you're pro-murder, and nobody's pro-murder. Abortion should be the last resort of people. It should be the very, 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 very last resort. But it should be safe and minimal. That's what most pro-choicers back in the day would say about that argument. That we should only be using it in dire need, in dire situations, but it should be safe and be reachable for people. They're not doing that anymore. So now people within the Democratic Party still chant this. They'll think that the Democratic Party is going to bring back abortion rights. They're not. They're not. Even the young generation knows that, which is why younger people that may have voted for Joe Biden in 2020 went towards Trump. They went towards Trump because the Democratic Party completely turned their backs and allow Roe v. Wade to get overturned. Young people were even calling this out. And now you got these shit-lived kind of older generation screaming at the younger generation, don't you care about your lives? Your reproductive freedoms are going to be gone. All these young women, they're going to end up in the Handmaid's Tale situation in America. Well, why didn't you go after the Democratic Party to make sure it was codified? They had every opportunity to do that. And even this woman, she's not going to go after the Democratic Party. No, it's all apparently Trump's fault. All apparently Trump's fault for returning it to the states, which seems the most logical. Return it to the states. And that way, if a state does overturn its right to choose or reproductive freedoms, then you just have to challenge the states, which is a lot easier than challenging the federal system. So these people are just absolute morons. Absolute morons to be protesting over nothing. Over nothing.
I think the immigrant community faces uncertainty, fear that they don't deserve.
To LGBTQ rights and other causes they believe are under threat from the incoming administration.
The right to live our lives as we want to, the right to choose our partners, the right to express ourselves as we wish to, the right to honest history about the history of racism in this country are all going to be wiped away.
New York City isn't.
In Trump presidential term.
As if it got wiped away the first time around. When did any of this occur in the first time Trump became president? That's what I'd say to people like Bill Maher and Robert De Niro and all these people that are screaming at the top of the lungs. Oh my God, another Trump presidency. Do you know what's coming? I don't know what happened during the last presidency. You didn't lose your job then. You didn't stop acting in 2016. Now the celebrities went to Canada when they threatened to move when Trump was going to take office in 2016. So why is it different now? Why is it different now? Because the media found a way to scare you with Project 2025. You know, as scary it might sound, I'm more frightened by 2030, which is a way bigger scale than anything Trump and the so-called Heritage Foundation, which with Obamacare, by the way, is cultivating with Project 2025. I'm more worried about the global sphere of Project 2030, of the Great Reset, that envelops all this. That wants us divided, that wants these rallies, these empty, stupid, ridiculous rallies of nothing to still continue, to brainwash people, to further divide people. Instead of understanding, hey, people vote for Trump because, hey, it's impossible to buy groceries for a family of 4. Hey, maybe they want to end the war so their children don't have to die overseas at one point. Maybe that's the issue. Maybe not everybody is a sexist, racist, misogynist, as the media would like to continue to plague people on. So all this is just completely empty. And here's Fiorella Isabel, famous journalist for RT. She says thousands of morons gathered to protest Trump, but did do the same when the most genocidal president we've had continued to fund Israel terrorists while giving money to Nazis. All this shows how propagandized Americans are and their hypocrisy. Notice how nobody went after Joe Biden on any of the issues that she said there. Not many people, but yet same people that went after, say, George W. Bush for the Iraq War, for Afghanistan, and rightfully so, they stayed silent when Obama took over and turned those 2 wars into 7. And then Trump became president. And then, oh my God, the wars! The wars! How dare this president commit war crimes? And then they went to return to silence in 2020 when Joe Biden was doing a genocide. A genocide. Not a war, a genocide. So all this shows the entire hypocrisy of all this. All these protests nationwide, all these people that are dusting off their pussy hats and whatever from 2016 and shouting, "Not my president," just showing their utter stupidity and their hypocrisy of all this. And here, this is just outside. This is outside the Washington Monument, or the Washington Mall, actually. 1,000 people, again, showing their idiosyncrasies and their hypocrisy to all this.
There's symbolism right now. We need to organize. We need to get information. That's what DC, Free DC is doing.
And you can see there's some Ukraine flags, there's some Israel flags. Again, because they're worried that the funding's going to get cut off. That gravy train of sending money to corrupt nations in East Europe or the Middle Eastern countries that blackmail and deceive every other place in the world, that's going to be ending, folks. The neoliberal dream is over. And now it's time for reality to sink in, for people to actually prosper in this nation, to prosper in the world. And this is all what comes out of it, is that these people are just embedded with neoliberal propaganda done by CNN, MSNBC, done by just the status quo as a whole, being propagandized and fueled up to go after Trump for something that the entire system takes a part of. The entire system. And none of these people will ever protest, the CIA. They're not going to protest the NSA. They're never going to protest the Department of Homeland Security. They're never going to protest those. They're never going to protest George Soros. But it's easy to go after Trump. It's easy to go after Trump, especially with all the made-up unjust lawfare that they did after him. Calling him a racist, calling him a misogynist, calling him a pervert, calling him a rapist. Well, here's AOC. AOC calling Trump a rapist, and she's going to do in her response of why she's not attending the inauguration. She's going to sit it out like Michelle Obama, and she says that it's because Trump's a rapist. Listen to what she says.
All these journalists are like, Congresswoman, are you going to the inauguration? Congresswoman, are you going to the inauguration? Are you going to the inauguration? Let me make myself clear. I don't celebrate rapists. So no, I'm not going to the inauguration tomorrow.
What's that? I'm not going to the inauguration because I don't celebrate a rapist. Really nailing down that influencer tone, by the way. Really nailing that down. I'm not going to that inauguration because it's bad. Because that guy is supposed rapist. That's what I heard on television. So, I respond to that. That was from Libs of TikTok who tweeted that out. AOC calls Trump a rapist. Another person Trump should sue. I don't know about suing, but definitely she has lost any credibility she ever had of being this effective leader. She's just now total shill for the Democratic Party. And dug her heels really into that, being part of that. So, I said, I have two words for AOC. Tara Reade. And for those who don't know who that woman is and aren't familiar with that name, exactly. Because that was the woman that accused Joe Biden that she was raped and groped and sexually assaulted by then Senator Joe Biden, who then became president, and all went silent, including her. All of it went silent. So if you're not familiar who Tara Reade is, I advise people to look her up, go on to Google, hear the story, hear what she has to say, because they purposely undermined and attacked people like Tara Reade. Because in their world, a blue rapist is not as bad as a red rapist. I'm going to say I hate all rapists, but I'd rather have a blue one in office than a red one like Trump. I'd rather have a Democrat who sexually abuses minors, sexually abuses interns like Bill Clinton, like Joe Biden. I'd rather have those people than someone like Trump. And it's easier to say that you are against rape when it comes to someone like Trump, but it's harder for someone like AOC to say that about Joe Biden. Why? Because AOC is a career climbist. She wants to further her career within the Democratic Party. So of course, she's not going to go after the hand that feeds her. Not going to go after Mama Bear. Not going to go after the people that installed her and manipulate her and train her and condition her and groom her to what she is right now. That's why doing all these nefarious videos. That's why she went after Tucker Carlson for, oh, good, we're going to censor out that guy because he's a white supremacist wacko. And how dare Jim Acosta be told to sit down with the Trump administration? I swear to God, they brought that up yesterday when I saw the preview for the inauguration. They said, oh, what about journalists in this time of day? Like, you know, all the times and opportunities that they could have done for Julian Assange and they failed to do so, that now, at this point, now he's a free man. He was locked away for how many years? How many years? Hillary Clinton wanted to kill her. Wanted to kill him. And they had every opportunity to protect that journalist. But no, it's not about journalism. It's about maintaining the status quo. That's what all this is.